Hello everybody and welcome to the GMS Magazine channel. I am Paco Garcia, your host, and this is a channel all about board games and role-playing games, which is what we're going to talk about today. Not long ago I did the unboxing of the Kickstarter edition of Wet Ink's game Never Going Home, a game in which the players are taken back to an alternative version of First World War, an even darker and grittier one. Now, after having played this game, what I would like to do is to tell you if this game is actually worth the amount of money that you have to pay to get your hands on it. Welcome to the GMS Magazine RPG Reviews. Let's game. Wet Ink games are released Never Going Home after a very successful Kickstarter campaign in which the looks of the game, the whole art direction of the game promised an awful lot, and to be honest, the premise was really appealing. Not many games, or at least definitely not enough, cover First World War, and where we're looking for a horror alternative one, more often than not we see a very Lovecraftian approach to it. Wet Ink's games decided to do something a little bit different with it, and it gives us a First World War in which the Battle of the Somme, because of the insane amount of human sacrifice, pain and hardship it brought, and that's not something to take lightly because it was a real event, it broke a tear in the veil and it gave access to a darker, grittier, bloodier world that now is rummaging about the world and threatening our very own existence. The players are sucked into this new world in the middle of First World War and they have to figure out what's going on. But before I tell you a little bit more about it, what is the game production like? Well, the hardcover that I got from Kickstarter has its things, some things better than others. The binding is excellent. The artwork consistently throughout the whole publication, not just this book but everything else I got with the Kickstarter edition, is stunning. The art direction is very solid and it really continues throughout the whole production line. Perfectly done. The binding is very good, the production is very good. The layout though leaves a little bit to be desired. I know for a fact, because I have spoken with them briefly in Twitter and Facebook, that they have to learn an awful lot from this experience, and I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that they will be doing a lot better in the future, because it wouldn't take an awful lot to improve on this layout. Simply leaving a little bit more space here and there, separating paragraphs, basically playing with the space that you already have, would have made the whole thing much easier to read and therefore to understand as well. The writing also needs a little bit of TLC, I have to say. Sometimes I did find myself going time and time again trying to understand exactly how something was meant to be used, because this game combines dice mechanisms and cards, as in, playing cards mechanics. It was a little bit difficult to grasp what's what and what is it for. Examples, there are some. I feel it needs a few more, and because there isn't really any kind of separation other than some bolded lettering before the example begins, it's very hard to differentiate where the explanation of the rules begin and the examples begin. So it needs a lot of TLC. Rules wise, actually is not that complicated, but it's quite original and it does take a little bit to get used to. You play with both D6s and a set of poker cards. The D6s are used to roll the dice and you have to hit a target number of successes. A 5 and a 6 are successes. Anything else is just not a success. There are no critical failures and there are no consequences Sometimes there are, but more often than not, there are no consequences for not obtaining the number of successes. But if you don't get them, then you just don't get to do what you are supposed to do. Getting 5 or 6s is not as easy as it may seem, so you have to be careful and decide how you're going to use your dice carefully. You can do things to alter your dice. Once some things are done before you roll and some things are done after you roll. So before you roll, you can decide whether you want to roll a number of dice, whether you want to use cards to influence the dice. And after you roll, you can decide whether you want to add a pip to a die, or if you want to re-roll a number of dice and you used your cards for that. Every player is going to have a set of cards in your hands. These are important because each color is going to represent something that belongs to the players. So feelings, memories, experiences, relationships, skills. And you will be losing some of those cards on your hand. Why? Because that's going to represent how your character is losing itself. Being exposed to this new world that has come through the war, through this ginormous battle, means that we get corrupted. We get drawn into losing our humanity and becoming something else. The way that is reflected in the game is by accumulating some corruption points, and you can accumulate those by getting some cards out of the deck. I'll explain that in a second. The point is that you can sacrifice cards. You can sacrifice a part of yourself to obtain something for the greater good. Unless the greater good is your very own, because if you accumulate corruption, then you may not be working for your friends much longer. Character creation is a fairly simple affair. There's plenty of freedom to be given what kind of player you want to have, what kind of role you play in the army, and invariably you're going to be army. You can change it into anything else if you like, but the likelihood is that you're going to be part of the army. And it takes next to nothing. It's just a matter of choosing abilities, spreading a few points throughout those abilities, making sure that you get 1 point for each, not more than X number of points for any other. And that's it. Choose your equipment, which can be pretty much anything you like, as long as you can justify it. It's a very simple thing. Done. Character created in 10 minutes. 15 minutes tops. Very easy. So that makes perfect sense. It's very simple. You get a set of 5 cards in your hand, and you have to take a look at the value of those cards because they are also used for initiatives. Cards are discarded as you use them, except when you use them for initiative, in which case they are just shown. This is the value, with aces being the highest, and then you bring it back to your hand. But if you lose cards because you need to change the dice or whatever, then you start to lose your memories. So there are, for instance, spades, knowledge, growing, and clubs, things. You overcome obstacles, hearts are relationship, emotions. So you begin to lose some of these things. Your character begins to change. This means that role-playing is insanely important in this game, and you have to be careful because it's also quite lethal. Getting into a fight with an enemy might not be something that you want to do. Corruption is earned when you get a joker. When you get a joker, you draw a card from the deck. If it is a red card, nothing happens. But if it is a black card, then you gain a point of corruption, and the jokers are shuffled back into the deck. The more cards that are discarded from the deck, the more chances to get a joker, which exemplifies the longer that you were expecting and spending in this horrific war. So be careful there. That combination of the dice that you have to roll, and you have to be careful how you organize the dice because it's not easy to get as many successes, how cooperating with the other players can bring you more successes, and that is very, very important. And the narrative mechanics of the card deck is actually very appealing to me, because I like narrative games an awful lot. And to know that chance is going to play a big role in how the game is going to develop matters to me quite a lot, quite frankly. Magic is divided in different paths, the paths of whispers, and there is a book that expands on it. It's brutal. Magic always comes at a cost, and corrupted players that use magic, and you have to be corrupted to use magic, can get lost quite easily. In exchange, you get a very powerful character, but is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. The bestiary is, oh my god, lovely. So lovely. It comes with some very interesting creatures, and very scary ones at that. Some of them, like for instance the corpse feeder, is just a ghoul, but somehow they've managed to make it scarier. The disfigurement, that is something that you can actually apply to player characters. It's insanely good, so good. And there are some creatures like the skin thief, which is terrifying. You have the trans gremlin, which is just like, can be funny gremlin, can be the sort of threat, doesn't look like a threat, and then oh my god, you are in trouble threat. And the trench talker, which is, I have used this in my game just to scare my players, and I'm telling you now, it worked. It worked really, really well. Adventures, and of which there are several at the end of the book, they are actually divided in journeys. So everything is meant to be a journey, simplified by a journey, going from one place and coming back, or something similar. And most of the adventures have been designed to be one shots, perhaps two shots if you are like my group of people, and you know, we play slowly, we roleplay an awful lot. Everything has been sandboxed, so to speak, because what you get is a mission with your briefing, a kind of conditions, and this is interesting because for an adventure to take place out of your hand, you need to discard some of the cards. So you begin already, with a disadvantage, but you get, through getting rid of that card, you get to actually decide how you are going to prepare for that adventure. The beginning of the adventure is actually narrated by the players, and I absolutely love that. In combat, and there is combat, and it's very good, it's also very interesting that the player who wins the initiative will decide who goes next. So you can decide if it's going to be one of your friends, one of the other NPCs, or if you're going to go to the GM and say, no, the enemies, go. The last player to go, well, decides who's going to go next until the next episode. That's essentially it. I like that a lot. In the adventures, as I was saying, though, you get your briefing, you get your conditions for this thing to work out. If you don't have cards that you can use in your hand, then you take off the deck, increasing the possibility of a joker appearing at any point. And then you get a number of events. Now, those events, some must happen for the adventure to go through, and some are completely optional. If you want to have a longer adventure, you use them. If you want to have a shorter adventure, you don't use them. Just you can make up your mind as to how it's going to be, and there's a mission that has to be accomplished. For instance, in the first adventure, you have a reporter that you have to take someplace so they can take a look at something and come back with the reporter unharmed. A lot easier said than done. The core book is only 100 and something pages. It's not a book that will take you a very long time to read. It's 108 pages. It comes with absolutely everything you need, including a little bit of GM advice and some advice on using the X card, because the game can get really scary very quickly and very easily, and because the decisions that you make are truly going to affect the other players, it's best if no fun is ruined for no particular reason. There's plenty of things going on with this game, and plenty of supplements to keep your interest going for a long time. And since I'm recording this at the very end of 2019, I know that they're coming up in 2020 with another Kickstarter, well worth taking a look. I love it. Despite its shortfalls, which I'm sure will be looked after in new editions of the game, I think this is an absolutely fantastic substitute for something like a Call of Cthulhu campaign for something a bit shorter. True, I cannot see this working on a really long campaign. I think it would get a little bit... it needs more to it. But between games, if one of your friends cannot make it, preparing one of these adventures will take you half an hour, more or less, and you have 4 to 5 hours of play quite easily. So Never Going Home is an absolute hard yes from me. It will not be easy to get used to it. It's not a game for beginners, but as an experience, it's absolutely fantastic and very highly recommended. So thank you very much indeed for being there. If you have enjoyed this game, please do let me know, and if you haven't, do let me know as well. What have I missed? I really look forward to hearing what you have to say as well. But until the next time, I hope that you subscribe and leave me your comments, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care.